Thank you very much. So I'll try to be short. I got 15 minutes. That's a challenge in itself. My name is Julien Brun. I'm a Frenchman. I've been 8 years in the region, Southeast Asia more especially. The director of CEL Consulting, which is a consulting firm specialized in supply chain management. We actually help companies, especially manufacturing companies, to improve their cost, their inventory, their cash flow, their service level. Beside that, I'm the vice president of the French Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam. And I'm as well the founder of a business association called Vietnam Supply Chain. So, pretty much about Vietnam and Southeast Asia, and pretty much about supply chain. Thanks for having invited me here. I'm very honored to be on this stage. And thanks for giving me the opportunity and the challenge to keeping you awake after such a wonderful lunch. I'll try to be the French espresso kind of presentation, so you can enjoy the rest of the afternoon with your eyes open. Let's do a bit of exercise. I just want to screen the room. Who is actually involved on a day-to-day basis or on a regular basis in managing suppliers? That's quite a majority. Who has ever complained or actually wished your supplier were a bit better in terms of price or service level? Very nice. Good, so I'm right on the right topic. Just checking. So I'm going to talk about how a very practical, down-to-earth, non-technical approach to actually improving, helping your suppliers to improve. You need first to convince them. They have to be key suppliers. You have to have already existing relationships. And I'm going to define what kind of supplier I'm talking about here. There are common ones. It doesn't matter which industry we're talking about. They are probably the most common ones. Small and medium enterprise, private-owned, oriented into manufacturing, revenue between $10 and $100 million, a workforce of hundreds or thousands of people, doesn't matter. What is important is how fast they've been growing. 15-30% per year is quite common in, at least in Southeast Asia. An important aspect as well to look at is who is managing the company, and it's often the owner, the founder of the company, someone very practical, someone quite technical as well, an entrepreneur who's built his own business, has been rather successful, knows his product and his process very well. It tends to be a bit conservative when it comes to new ideas. Why? Because those people tend to stay within their four walls quite a long time, and they're not necessarily aware of the best practice in management or organization. So, how do you actually help those kind of companies and people to make the first step toward performance improvement? That's a very good question. I'm going to try to answer here. You first need to convince this person. And here is a very simple persuasion cycle, which brings someone from a resisting mode to a listening mode, then to a considering the option of doing, then being willing to do something, actually doing, and being glad they actually did it. Okay? Very simple. It's called persuasion. So I'm not going to go through all these steps one by one. I'm going to consider how to bring your supplier to a willing to do mode first, and we'll discuss on how you can help him to achieve improvement later. So we'll take the first step, which I call the spark, and I'll explain. The second step, which is picking up low-hanging fruits. The spark. What do I call the spark? Is actually the realization of the necessity to do something, to act, to improve. Okay? To be able to convince him, you need this person to be able to realize that there's a need to improve. And you need to set two initial conditions for this spark to happen. You need to have measures. You need to have figures that represents, that reflects the reality, the actual performance of these suppliers. No opinions, no thoughts, just facts, figures. You need to have that in place already. They would say you can't improve what you don't measure. This is my point here. Initial performance measure you can have are the following one. Can be delivery performance, price reduction performance, quality. Internal aspects from inside, cost and cash aspects, which can be disclosed if you work open book. It's always better. And the sustainability aspects that as well are more and more important these days. Here's a very simple dashboard that you follow month by month, saying where you are today, as per the target. Those kind of KPIs are obviously business matters. So you need the right people to discuss those matters. Don't send your merchandiser talking to a sales rep, you won't get anything. It's like putting Republicans and Democrats and trying to find out where should be the US economy going. You go to the wall. You need the right people to talk about the right matters. And a senior level person from the buyer side and the owner, ideally from the supplier side, have to sit down together on these figures. We got the initial conditions. Before I talk about this spark, because you got the environment for this spark to happen, I'd like to take us back to school, university. Probably remember that, I hope. Remember, you take an exam, you get the result displayed on the wall, and everyone would rush and look at your name and your mark. It's the first thing you do. What would be the second thing you actually do? Cry? Yeah? Go to the pub and get drunk? Englishman, yeah? That's right. You check your other friends where they are, and you can compare and locate and identify how good you are compared to the others. It's an important natural reaction. So let's understand that the supplier we're talking about don't have this opportunity necessarily to position themselves, to compare themselves toward others. They are again quite closed in their box and have very little opportunity to have feedback from the outside. They receive complaints, they receive threats, but not necessarily facts on how well they are doing compared to other competitors. So my point is here to use your portfolio of suppliers as a very valuable source for you to take this procurement decision, but for your supplier to actually have benchmark information on how well they are doing on different measures you use. This is a very powerful tool. You bring perspective to them. You suddenly have them realize how well they are doing as per the other competitors. And there are very few people that are using actually in the sourcing world those data in a consistent manner to say, here's your score, and here are what other can do. Here's a purely delivery and cost performance, and here is very valuable cost breakdown that shows a company compared to the others, and you can identify where could be the source of improvement. So use those facts, explain market trends, why they are better or worse than others, show pictures of other factories if you can, explain them where others would invest in which technology. You need to highlight finally the gaps between them between them and others. You have to value this gap. How much would represent in dollar the productivity or the cost difference that you're missing? An example, recently I've been working with a Korean company based in Vietnam, $70 million. They've been benchmarked with a Chinese company where the productivity was 20% higher. We evaluated the gap between this Korean and this Chinese of $3.9 million. per year. This was double the amount of their profit. So that's what I call the spark. You actually start speaking about money. You actually start showing what is possible somewhere else. And convincing is fairly easy with these kind of things. So to create the spark again, maybe I'll lose my voice. You hear me?
Yeah.
So, not anymore. To create the spark, you need facts and figures, the right people, benchmarking information, highlight the gap and evaluate him, and set up improvement objective. That works very well over various suppliers I've been working with, suppliers that are actually people manufacturing for companies like IKEA, Decathlon, La Firma, etc. This is the approach we're taking. Now, you got to take the supplier to the next step. He's willing to do the move, he's not very sure how to do it. So where to start is the next question that comes. Complexity is obviously the problem, and you can help in there by having a very practical approach on decomposing the problem. Here's, I'm not sure you can see here, the challenge was cost. This is a manufacturing company, roughly $95 million revenue. They were stuck with too high price and too low profit margin. So we decompose, we brainstorm and say, what's the problem you're incurring? We realize that things are interconnected, thank you. Can be fairly well interconnected, and you can actually come up with a cause and effect diagram that connects the quality, the planning issues, the labor issues, the inventory issues together in a very logical manner. So you actually can spot more simple and targeted projects to improve first. Once you identify where you could improve, you have to prioritize these projects in a very simple matrix that you probably have seen somewhere to identify your low-hanging fruits. You need to start with that. They are the ones that are more impactful for the business and less difficult to pick up. You set up a task force. You don't need a lot of expertise or expensive consultants to achieve these projects. You need a good common sense, a task force that is dedicated, that is supported by the decision maker. Common sense is the most important tool to achieve those small projects that they can really achieve a really substantial amount of savings. Again, decompose complexity, prioritize, and lead improvement projects that are achievable by internal people. So we got our two steps. The first project is done. We got actually what we call a virtuous cycle of potentially continuous improvement, because the supplier realized that this is rather easy to achieve small targeted project and deliver high-level impact. I'm done with the time, so I'll finish. The role of the buyer is obviously to follow up on these projects, to encourage, this is very important, to bring more perspective, more benchmarking information along the way, and to actually negotiate the benefit share. You save, you give me some price reduction, and everyone's happy. Overall, this is called supply chain collaboration. The concept of this working together beyond the wall of our company has been developed 40 years ago by Toyota. It was called extended enterprise, and now it's called supply chain collaboration. It's a concept created in the past that will shape the future of our supply chains. Thank you for your attention. Sorry for the...
Julien, no problem. Very, very quickly, just before you go, you're based in Ho Chi Minh City. You're covering the Southeast Asia area. Are you seeing a lot more activity these days? Are you seeing a lot more factories coming to Vietnam? Because quite a number of my clients, they were very excited about Vietnam in the early days. And because of a lot of the red tape and a lot of the other issues, documentation and so on, they have become less excited. Any views on that?
Vietnam is as you said, is a good. It was called China Plus One a few years back.
Sure.
It's still, but macroeconomic issues have really impacted the country hardly, and inflation has rocked up to the roof. The bubble of real estate have completely exploded. You got really strong problems with administrative issues on licensing. So the government is not really efficient in actually facilitating investment. So you see the potential that is unfortunately not fully accessible.
Okay.
But you got other countries like Indonesia and Cambodia, and potentially Myanmar, but again, I agree, it's not necessarily the right time to jump on this.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.